area of any rectangle. The example there, you've got this rectangle, maybe it's a room, a small room, a pantry, it's 6 feet by 5 feet, so how many square, well actually they're using inches there, square inches, 30 square inches if you will, or could be feet, 30 square feet. So let me ask you, you probably don't even need a calculator for this. If you had a room that was 40 feet wide, or a small warehouse, 40 feet wide, 70 feet deep, how many square feet are there?
2,800.
2,800. You did that in your head, didn't you? Okay. Well, try this one on. The width is 34 feet, and it's 72 feet deep. How many square feet? Pull out those phones. 34 would be 34 times 72 would be 2,448 square feet, wouldn't it? Congratulations, you've just worked one of the 2 calculations on your exam tomorrow, okay? And I bet you'll remember that. Well, anyway, back to how do we use this? Well, obviously we as real estate agents for room measurements. Appraisers need to know how to measure square footage. They measure square footage. This first measurement, very much like the tax assessor, they wrap a tape around the house, and then they exclude any, like an attached garage, anything like that, and that gives them a rough idea of living square footage. But unlike the appraiser, the tax assessor never goes into the property. The appraiser does, so they're able to catch any of the mistakes they might have made. In other words, you're looking at the house from the outside, and you can see it's got a 2-car attached garage. Well, what you may not be able to tell is that an overlinked garage? You know, it could be 6 feet longer than your standard garage, right? It could be even a little wider. So that would cause that measurement of wrapping the tape around the house. They may actually subtract the garage measurements that have been miscalculated, and it could have been at the expense of some of the living square footage in the home. So that's why when you look at your, when you pull up something on the MLS, what typically do we use as far as square footage in residential? Do we use the number per the taxing authority? Well, no, we actually, when we put it in our, when we pull it from the MLS, and it says unexempt taxes, and then and we give the unexempt taxes, meaning before any of your, you know, homestead exemption, disability, etc. When it comes to the square footage that we use in our MLS, we use a number /TAX. We only have 4 abbreviations. TAX, meaning from the taxing authority. Can you tell me what the other 3 are?
Appraisal.
APPR for appraiser, meaning we got that number from an appraisal. And then how about BLDR, the builder's square footage? And then what's the 4th one? That's a scary one. Other. Yeah, other. You sit down with Bill and Nancy and you say, well, you know, I'm going to run with the square footage for the taxing authority. It says y'all have 2,850 square feet. No, we've got 3,100 square feet. Okay, maybe I missed something. Enclosed porch, maybe sunroom, maybe you enclose the garage, you know, whatever. And they don't really know why they may, and that may not be square footage that the appraiser will agree with. But at least we have some understanding of where they came up with that number. But oftentimes they have no clue, and they tell you that there's 3,100 square feet. Which number do you use? The one that they tell you to use. You use the one other, yeah. And so they really ought to change that from other to CYA, cover your assets. And so that you want to make a notation of that, so that there's not any issue with it. So that's fairly common, and then of course we use that square footage to come up with all other sorts of measurements, such as price per foot and things things like that. So anyway, typically we might measure rooms, and even when we report the room measurements in our MLS, we cover our assets, don't we? Don't we make a statement there that these are estimates? Yeah, they're not accurate. They could be very accurate, but we want to make sure that we're not misquoting square footage.
Quick question.
Yes.
Say if you got a,
And that is not, doesn't fit the definition of living square footage. So it would be subtracted. So now, you not only don't have a garage, but you lose that square footage as well. So now we're gonna talk about GLA, gross living area. This is a national course. So the term we're gonna learn is GLA, gross living area. And that is your amount of living square footage that is finished out completely and year-round habitable above grade, meaning above ground, so they don't include basements, okay? Of course, we don't have many basements in Texas, do we? We don't need them, because we have a shallow freeze line. That's what required, that's what determines whether you have a basement or not, is the freeze line, okay? Question?
Yeah, so if you have a home and then you have like a mother-in-law suite separate from the home or like a little whatever, you can't include it with the total square footage, it has to be somewhere different.
Correct, the
Right.
only time the appraiser would even, they will note that outbuilding. Inspectors might inspect outbuildings for an extra fee, and I know this is an appraisal class, but it would not be a part of the square footage for the home, the outbuilding, whatever. You know, it's called eco housing, and it evolved out of Australia, where they actually bring a pod unit in, put it over the, most of your HOAs don't allow that. But, no, they wouldn't count that. Now, the inspector, are they gonna inspect a detached garage? They will, because they consider that part of the house, but the appraiser's not gonna count any of that as square footage. Now, many of those, you could have a detached garage. I sold a lot of, in fact, I've owned a few, triplexes, quadplexes, where, you know, you have a detached garage, and then above it, you have a fifth unit that you can rent. And, but they wouldn't count that space above the garage as square footage for the appraisal.
Now, adage that turn into, let's say, game rooms, that can be added though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So-
Yeah, if it's on the roof, it doesn't matter what you call it. You know, we know there's a lot of myths, you know, like a bedroom has to have a closet. No, it doesn't. Has to have a window. No, it doesn't. That's fire code. You're not supposed to walk through a room to get to that room. Okay, so we oftentimes call it a bonus room or something like that. But a bedroom, you're supposed to be able to enter off of the hallway and not walk through another room to get to it. So the appraiser, just like the real estate agent, might refer to that additional room off of the master or something like that as a bonus area or a study, something like that, but not a bedroom. So a lot of myths out there that we tend to hear and then buy into and follow along. So many of your homes built prior to the 40s didn't, prior to the 50s, they didn't have closets. The average square footage of a home in the year I was born, 1955, was 983 square feet. You realize that? I have clients that have closets that big. I have a wife who'd love a closet that big. Problem is, we gotta fill it up. She's good at that. So today the average square footage of a home is around 2580, something like that. It's actually printed down. So anyway, so we've covered two of our questions from this chapter. I want you to jump forward to go to page 36. If you ever struggled with how do you measure that triangular space? How do you measure the square footage up in the attic area? Let's say it's finished out, or it's a second story, whatever, but you've got this roof line triangle. How would you determine the square footage of that prism, if you will? Well, it's half the length times the width. So, anyway, you can't go wrong learning some of this. Go to page 39, and there's an example of a simple little footprint, if you will, of what's the area for A, B, and C, and that would be you would calculate your 25 feet by your actually it would be 18 by 19. 25 by 19 for area A, then your 9 by 7 area C, 13 by 8, and then add those up, and I think you come up with something like 642 square feet. Anyway, go to page 40. And on page 40, this one, I don't have all these blanks filled in, but this is a classic example. I don't know what you see here, but I see the appraiser's looking down on a footprint of a drawing of maybe a lake house or something, probably a contemporary style, and they have to take all of these different areas and add all these up in order to come up with the total square footage for areas A through F. So, how would you calculate area A? Well, it's 8 feet tall. And then what about that base there? Well, if it's 20 across the bottom of B, and you see that 12 space right there, that would then leave 8. So it would be 8 by 8 is 64. That's if it was a rectangle, but it's a triangle, so it would be half of that. So half of your length times your height, width times height. Anyway, so you can check those, and they have to make a living area sketch, if you will. And the county tax authorities used to do that. And you may or may not remember that. They also had pictures of our homes, didn't they? The front picture, until the state of Texas determined that was a privacy issue. So no longer do you see those sketches done by the county or pictures. We rely on who takes pictures now for us? Google, yeah, Google Maps. So, but no longer can the county do that in Texas. Well, go to fast forward to page 43, and here we're going to see our third calculation. Actually, the second calculation, or the third question from this chapter, is going to be, do you know how to calculate cubic footage or the volume of a space? And there's your formula, top of page 43. The length times the width times the height would give you the cubic footage. And so I know we have a question from there. And so let's assume, pull that calculator out, and let's do a couple of these just to make sure we can. Let's say that you had a warehouse space that's 250 feet across the front, and it is 625 feet deep, and it's 14 feet high, and it's important that it's a flat roof. So what would be the cubic footage of that space? 250 by 625 by 14 feet tall. Anybody come up with that? Actually, I don't have it filled in, so I might as well. Yeah, I might as well do it myself, just to make sure I have it. So 250, right, times your 625. Excuse me. Yeah, did I say 625?
Yeah.
Yeah. Times your 14. Did what y'all get? 2,187,50. Okay. So try this one on. Probably don't even need. Let me make sure I'm doing this correct. Sometimes the simplest things, we haven't done them in a while. What if you got a space that's it's 150 across the front, 325 deep. So 150 across the front, 250 feet deep, and 14 feet tall.
You said different numbers.
What's that?
Oh, I thought you said 325 the first time.
Oh, no, that was another number. Here, try this one, 250 across the front, 625 feet deep, and 14 feet tall.
We already did that one.
That's
I
what-
did that one,
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
what we did.
How about 150 feet wide, 325 feet deep, 14 feet tall? 682,500. Okay, does everybody see how to do that?
No.
And, yes?
No.
Okay, okay, draw a picture, just a box that's 150 feet across the front, and it's 325 feet deep. Now, just tell me what's the square footage of that area?
125.
It would be 150 times your 325, so it'd be 48,750 square feet. Well, now we want the volume of that space. The only thing that's missing is the height. It's a flat roof. If it was a prism, an A-shaped roof, then we'd have to calculate that triangular area, then take half of that. So now we add the 14 feet, and so 150 times 325 times 14 gives you 682,500 cubic feet. That's the volume of a space. Does everyone see that? That's your problem tomorrow. Okay, you just worked it. All right? So I bet you'll know how to do it again tomorrow. You still don't see it?
Well, no, I'm sharing a book and I didn't bring my glasses. Can you draw a
Oh,
picture
okay,
for
well,
me?
let's just, all right, so you got this space. It's a warehouse, you're looking down on it, and why would you make a calculation like this? Let's say it's 100 feet across the front, 70 feet down this side. This is a warehouse, you're gonna fill it up with television sets or whatever. And you've gotta know how much storage space you have, correct? Oh, and you also have, so you have to, you're gonna be able to stack these TVs pretty much everywhere within the space. Except let's add a little feature to it. Let's do a little 10 by 10 office here. And how tall is this building? 14 feet, 20 feet, whatever. And so, so how much storage space do you have in this area? You have 100 times 70 times 14, and then you would have to subtract from that your 100 square feet, 10 by 10 by 14, because that's office space, not usable for storage. I just added that dimension to it. So the volume of this room is the length.
I get
times the
that.
width,
I get that. Just what's the formula? Can you give me?
length times width times
It's on
height.
that sheet.
Oh, okay.
Length times width times height. All right.
Oh, okay.
That gives you the volume or the cubic footage of an area. And when do we use that? We'll ask anyone who's a California realtor. They use volume. They use volume measurements in their MLSs because we know that you could have a small room that's say 12 by 10. It's not a real big room, is it? If it has an 8-foot ceiling, is it going to feel bigger if it has a 15-foot ceiling? Yeah, it actually is bigger, but it's offers no more utility because you can't store things. You can't, use that extra volume, but it feels bigger. So in California, they actually use volume measurements to report in their MLS. Okay, so again, kind of they could have made it real difficult here. Go to page 44. How would you measure the square footage of this, the volume, sorry, of this space? Well, this little house, 22 feet wide, 35 feet across the front, 10 feet high, and so you would calculate your 35 times 22 times 10, and you would set that number aside, right? And then, what's the volume, or, the volume of the roof area? Well, the same calculation, the base times the height times the width, but half of that. So it'd be half of your base times the height times the width of the garage, of the attic area, if you will, and then combine the two. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, not a real difficult calculation. And then over on page 45, that's the typical kind of sketch you would see, the perimeter measurements of an improvement. So then you have a little bit about statistics. Again, we don't have any further test questions, but we use statistics a lot. And some of the terms you need to grasp if you're going to understand statistics, starting out fundamentally. What do we mean by the population? What do we mean by the variate? And so you need to learn the language of statistics, if you will. And but most of us don't really need to do that. Go down the bottom of page 46. And let's say you're working in a particular area and there's been 9 sales recently. Well, what are those price ranges? Well, there they are. The most expensive one, $175. The cheapest one, $100,000. So what's the number of sales in that area? It'd be 9. So if we wanted to calculate the mean, what's another name for mean? Average. So what would be the average sales price? You take the 9 variants and you add them up, and then you divide by 9 units, right? And that would give you $138,000 is the average price based on those sales prices. So we do that stuff all the time, don't we? What's the median? Well, it's the middle number, if you will. It says that the median is found by dividing the number of variants into 2 equal groups. Well, whoops, this can't be divided into 2 equal groups, right? Because it's an odd number. So if the number of variants is odd, the median is the single variant at the middle. So in this case, and there are an odd number of variants here, that center number is what? 150. And then the mode is simply the most frequently occurring variant. So how many 175 sales are there? 1. How many 165 sales? 1. How many 102 or 100? 2 and 1. But it looks like there's 450,000 sales, so that would recognize the median price. And anyway, so then once you master some of that, then you can look at how we use this in terms of bar charts and graphs. Everyone's heard of the bell curve. And look at if you go to the end of the chapter, page 54, when the data that you have, when they line up symmetrically, the mean, the median, and the mode are all equal. That's known as normal distribution. When the mode, median, mean do not line up, if it's skewed, not screwed, screwed up, skewed, if you will, then you would not understand the difference between a positively skewed distribution of the numbers versus a negatively skewed distribution. So that could be useful in some of our explanations to with our clients. These are good little review questions back here. There's only 10 of them. If you're so inclined, knock yourself out and make some of those calculations. All of them are in the back of the book, as is all those example measurements. Okay. So so far this has been pretty uneventful. We've learned that in the first chapter that where do we find the standards of practice that appraisers must follow? In USPAP. Who has oversight over the licensing, certification, and recertification of appraisers? That would be your AQB, your Appraisal Qualifications Board. And what are those numbers? You gotta be, if you're licensed, what does that equate with? 400,000. And if you're certified, then you're looking at what, $1 million and up, okay? How do you convert a decimal to a percentage? Move the decimal 2 places to the right and add the percent sign. And then length times width gives us the area of the space. Length times width times height gives us the volume or cubic footage of a space. Trust me, you do not want to take exam 3 of this class because you will have 18 calculations, and they ain't fun. They are not fun at all. So let that be your motivation for taking this class one time, taking the test one time. That's kind of what you shot for when you took the real state and national exam, didn't you? And many of you passed the first time, some of you didn't. We know what the stats are. Some of you passed the national or the state, and you had to go back and take the other. It happens. I said it happens. So, and it does. And we do our best to prepare you for it, but we can't take the test for you. All right, Unit 3, Chapter 3, and I told the individual bringing our books over here, they said they might be able to get them over here before the end of our third break, which will be the 11:30 break. So I hope that's the case. And in fact, what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a break a few minutes early. We'll go see if our books are here for those that are in need of books. But this Unit 3 or Chapter 3 has 10 questions. And I promise you, you're going to feel like you're taking a Principles 1 class again, okay? So we don't want to spend a lot of time here, okay? It doesn't really have a lot to do with appraisal. And the last time I checked, that was the topic of this course. But we have to appreciate the fact that just as we had to learn a lot about a lot of principles, didn't we? Did we have to learn the definition of an improvement, a fixture, personal property? Yeah. And we have to learn what are the 3 legal land descriptions. So we're just going to rehash this. None of these 10 things that you're going to be tested on is new to you. None of it. Okay? Anyway, I'll see you back here. It's 11:22. I'll see you back here at 11. another one tomorrow,
Randy.
huh? Oh, right there.
Thank you for getting that. Just the right time.
Yeah, just before we get into increased test questions, or numbers that is.
Which is good because I can't. Because of the pressure. So doctors are doing
Yeah, they do, but
and she's doing her delivery, and I tell you the next step, I start feeling it. So by the time I go to the next class, I got some, I try to stay in my attitude, and
What about a steroid shot?
I go to urgent care. Over time.
I have the same infection for those cancers instead of being it just started being
Yeah, I'm not understanding.
They're going to no, I got so bad I just wanted to
yeah, you put it on top, but they're gonna treat them out staff at the end of the.
Then I saw,
He was made of 160 and the rest of it.
that are, the allergies are so bad, like.
Yeah, they are.
I
don't have their card,
Me and my daughter were both like,
My mom's. What's your number, son?
Last time we looked
Represent them, so I'm like, they're, and I like, they do all of the W and like Florida and Illinois. But over there is Canada.
I was fighting against 3 weeks ago, that was a slow.
was it 2 weeks ago we had that other class?
It was 3 weeks ago, and we took their class there. Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday, Thursday. And then I signed the plane off for class that Monday, Tuesday.
And it wasn't
No,
only on.
I just wanted to go through the next class. So, I went from Monday, Tuesday to the next class, and that's why I started to go. So I had to replace it this one. And I'm gonna also give it up to the team here. April 1st.
Oh, right.
So the next time, now, it's actually, we can make. We pay for another class, with her liking. Cause I couldn't get money married for that, but I have to take the same class. Which one did you take the next? Okay.
Yeah.
That class Monday, Tuesday, we're gonna be for you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
5-year-old. Yes.
And so Jonathan, and then my husband's actually,
He was record,
how many fits you've done before?
as soon as he grew older, it. Yeah. He has like a little coat. With the hair. Those go by your fist.
Oh, your dad did. Okay. This is John, this is mine.
Yeah. It's easier to have it in hand. Yeah, fair enough.
So we decide Wednesday.
Okay, and then 5-day option periods, they have till Friday.
Yeah, your first day of your option period is today. Yesterday was day 0. First day of the option period, Saturday, Sundays, and holidays. So your 5-day option period, and then a day one will be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So Wednesday, because she said we would have done a 4-day option. Sorry.
It's okay, I've learned to move everything off.
Days will count, but it's hard to get it.
Okay, thank you.
59.
Okay. You got your book?
Yep, thank you.
Book, and, you'll just bring in your other one?
Yes,
and-
tomorrow, for sure. Yeah.
All right. So, and if anyone else doesn't have a book, we got 2 extra ones. So, all right. Let's look at, Unit 3, titled Real Estate and Its Appraisal. Half the time these, titles to these units or chapters make no sense. This might as well just be titled Principles of Real Estate. So when I read the overview, and you don't have to do all this reading, but we're told here appraising has always been a unique part of the real estate industry. We get that. The appraiser's opinion of property value has a significant effect on many aspects of the real estate transaction. Then it goes on and it gives you a little insight as to why they need to know some of these principles-related things. Does a loan originator, does the lender want personal property as security for the debt owed? personal property like the dining room furniture or the refrigerator. No, they don't want that. They can do what's called a package loan that includes personal property, but that's a unique type of loan. So they don't want personal property. So I think it'd be a good idea for an appraiser to know the difference between personal property and real property. And what do we mean by chattel?